Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second to last session of the day. We're having a quick turnaround for the president. I assume all of you have been following what's going on, not just in this room, but maybe outside of the room, just up the hill at the actual NATO headquarters. So if you remember earlier in the day when the US senators were here, giving their big, robust support for NATO. At that very moment, there was an emergency meeting called by the NATO members to go over his latest spending demands or threats, as you would call them, followed by an emergency impromptu press conference from President Trump. The result of that was that what was supposed to be happening was a meeting on Afghanistan. And that meeting, initially what we were told was canceled, but then it was actually delayed, and it did happen. So when the president comes out, we'll get a download on what happened in that meeting, on the state of things in Afghanistan, on the war effort. I'm a military reporter. That's what I focus on. And anything else you want to talk about Afghanistan. So I'm ready. I'm waiting for the signal from them. Are we ready? Okay, without ado, please, we can bring out, please, as he comes, President Ashraf Ghani from Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Fred is very hard to refuse.
Fred is he is. To make the short walk from the actual headquarters building to here. I said we'd get right into it, so let's get right into it. You just came from the meeting with NATO partners about Afghanistan. Frankly, something we don't hear much about these days, not especially this week. We heard a lot about Trump and spending and the politics of Europe. It wasn't always like that. The last few summits, there has been a lot more talk about whether to continue the war, whether to continue funding the war, how much of a commitment there would be to Afghanistan. So how about you start off by give us your download, fresh from the meeting, of what went on in that room today.
Well, thank you for having me. Afghanistan is a subject of consensus. It's not a subject of dissent. There was uniform support across the board. Support will be extended to 2024. The peace initiative, the unilateral ceasefire reciprocated for 3 days in Taliban, is welcomed. Reform efforts, the security sector is being transformed completely. The efforts against corruption and the regional cooperation. So I'm delighted to say that, contrary to the past, where there was question of a deaf dialogue between Afghans and the international community, now it's a real dialogue, it's a constructive dialogue. The efforts are based on mutual trust, and from President Trump all the way to the last speaker expressed support for our effort and pledged to provide condition-based support rather than time-bound effort, which had characterized past efforts.
That's right. So was he in the meeting?
Yes, of course he spoke.
He did. He spoke before leaving.
Yes.
And what did he say?
He said he thought that the strategy was working, that it was condition-based, that it was a strategy that it both Afghan dimension, but more importantly, a South Asia dimension. And he thanked NATO partners for the support that they had provided to make the strategy a success.
So there's a bit of a fear, I think, by some in this room and some back in Washington that Trump, being Trump, may one day snap his fingers and pull the United States out of Afghanistan. That he's campaigned and said publicly he wants troops to come home from places like Afghanistan and Syria and Iraq and even Germany and South Korea. Do you have any sense of that? Has he ever expressed that to you?
I think that was before he talked to me.
No.
We've built an excellent relationship.
You made him a believer.
No, I mean, the president has a style, and you need to be able to make your case succinctly. And I think I'm proud to say that we've made our case succinctly. And the other is that he looks for the evidence. It's an evidence-based. But this strategy on Afghanistan has been thoroughly prepared.
Well, let's talk about the evidence. So in the past year, we've had, I see two different headlines that come out of Afghanistan when it comes to the security situation in the war. On the one hand is this peace movement and the efforts that you have boldly taken on as a real personal mission, it seems. But at the same time, there are bombings in Kabul. I was in Kabul for one of these bombings with General Votel in January. Jalalabad, I think, just this week, that continue. Reporters with Secretary Pompeo, I think, noted extensively that he still has to fly in a helicopter to get from the airport to the Operation Resolute Support headquarters, not far away. What should Americans and NATO partners think is the reality? Is it a country on its way to peace, or is it a country still embroiled in the same warfare of the last 17 years?
The question is always perspective. With enormous respect, journalists look for events, I look for patterns. And people who look for events have always gotten the situation wrong, because they are focused on a time slice. And a time slice tells one part of the story, but if you don't slice it together and it results in something. Look at the first thing. 120,000, over 120,000 NATO troops in 2014. Assisted by close to 600,000 contractors.
And today?
And today, less than 15,000, not in combat roles. So if you look into this, the Afghan security forces have stepped in and prevented a vacuum from occurring. When I became president, September of 2014, wasn't the headlines that the Afghan government would not last and the security forces would collapse? Our commando force is doubling, our air force is tripling. We are on the move. We are in the middle of a fight. So if you look any part of World War II or World War I, would you have concluded midway through, as 1940, Churchill, wasn't he seriously advised to make peace? I think a sense of perspective is really important to seeing where we began and where we're going. The security sector is being reformed. This year alone, I've retired 535 police and army generals. 6 years ago, this would have been thought an impossibility. There's a generational change that is taking place in our security forces and across the board that I think is really transformational. The impact of this would be from 2 years to 20 years. The other side, of course, nobody would want a day of the horrors that are perpetuated on my people. But bombs do not break a nation. They kill us, but they don't break our spirit. That is a very real sight. I was sitting on my desk one day, early morning, and the entire windows collapsed. Everybody started running. There wasn't a single room in the presidential complex that did not have a broken window. But half an hour later, I received the deputy minister and met with him and did not leave my office. Of course, it was under a pile of. This balance between what we have inherited and what this fifth wave of violence is needs to be brought in the right perspective. There's a war in Afghanistan and there's a war over Afghanistan. And we need to grasp both dimensions and hopefully manage it.
But do you think you're in Europe, you're talking to NATO, we're talking to NATO publics. Are they wrong to feel skeptical or to feel frustrated that these phrases like Afghan good enough from General Petraeus years back, even to what you're saying, being that it's very, very, very bold and brave to continue working through a bombing event, but why does Afghanistan have to keep working through bombing events? At the same bigger moment of Trump and populism and nativism, of isolationist tendencies to pull back from all of that?
Look, uncertainty is we are in a moment of global uncertainty. There's no certainty about the economy and what would happen to the global economy. There's no certainty about what will happen to global politics. There's no certainty about how the balance of power would emerge because everybody is playing the previous rules. If broken, new rules are not in place. This is an open moment, and open moments are extraordinarily difficult. But the other part is there's uncertainty about global security. Belgium, Germany, France, UK, it's no longer Afghanistan. Of course, we being at the front and at the center of it and bearing brunt of it, face a different order. And part of our problem is that we inherently think in terms of bounded territories. The phenomena of transnational terrorism is not a national phenomenon. It's a network phenomenon. Networks operate with one order of effectiveness from their perspective in speed, and bureaucracies are slow. So to move a bureaucracy to be able to respond to that speed is our challenge, but not just locally, it is globally. What is, I think, gratifying, that regardless of how you characterize the situation in terms of nativism or otherwise, on this, there's international consensus. We have worked hard, and our partners have worked hard, and we've arrived at a consensus, and I hope that this consensus will persist.
And so do you think at this moment Afghanistan is better at resisting being made a crossroads of those international terrorist groups? I mean, ISIS has tried to come into Afghanistan with some success, but also conflicting with the other extremist groups there. I think the Pentagon says there are 20 separate terrorist organizations that they've even identified and are watching.
Well, you see, the choice is over two things. Do we become a platform for regional connectivity and global security, or do we become a launching ground for terrorism and criminality? If you look at the other side,
are you winning that battle between those two things?
It's early.
It's early.
No, of course it's early.
It's the 17th year of the war, though.
No, 17 years of the war are not my responsibility. 17 years of the war are responsibility of those people who made decisions. I wrote an op-ed in 2001 in Financial Times. I said, you can act quickly or you can act wisely. The decision was made to act quickly. If you want to see chapter and verse, read Stephen Cole's directorate thesis. That's not my responsibility. I want to say, from the day I assumed a responsibility, we have joined Central Asia after 117 years of separation. Afghanistan today is an inherent part of Central Asia. Our trade with Kazakhstan alone has increased 350%. With Uzbekistan, we are really making history. With Turkmenistan, we began. Now, we can reach China in 1 week. It used to take 3 months. The Central Asia is looking south. We're looking north. There's a different world. There are two worlds. One is preoccupied with terrorism, which we must be. But another is about how do we arrive at a level of coordination. After 1869, when the Atlantic and Pacific networks were connected and the Suez Canal was inaugurated, there's never been such a moment for a continental economy to emerge. Asia is in the process of becoming a continental economy. Land-based trade, intra-Asia-based trade is increasing massively. So that side of the opportunity had not been cultivated. We are cultivating this. The other is, of course, we are not better off. Who wants terrorists? But the question that brings us to peace is one dimension, which is Taliban, is national. The other dimensions are part of the networks. But unless we find a political solution with the Taliban, the platform, the set of activities, networks, relationships that Taliban provide enable these other groups to function. So it's extremely important that we find a political solution and then deal. The only incident during the ceasefire was in Jalalabad. Taliban coming out of a meeting with the governor, members of our security forces, and Afghan civilians were attacked by Daesh. Daesh both thrives on this, and it's a competitor. it eats its competitors. And the threat of Daesh is another order of threat than the one that Al-Qaeda was. Or our misfortune is that they look at us as territory, ecology, set of opportunities. When I look at Afghanistan, I look at the 3 billion people around it as seeing how we build relationship, how we build connectivity. When they look at Afghanistan, they say, how can they weaken, threaten, overall 3 billion people around? So the interest-based discussion with the region and with the world needs to take place, that we come with the right order of understanding the challenge and deal with it.
I want to move and talk about the peace events and the ceasefire of the year. I'm also going to ask the organizers, I need a time check at some point from when we started, what we have left, and then we'll get to audience questions.
Of course.
So have them in mind and get your hand up high when we turn your way. So you've made this push for peace, you've been public about it, you've had op-eds, you've been to Washington, there was this ceasefire. Was it a success?
It was a controlled experiment. No, literally. I can stop being an anthropologist. You know, you might make me president multiple times, but my primary identity is an analyst. It was the closest to a controlled experiment that you can have in politics. Meaning that was an offer to test a lot of assumptions. And
what did you learn?
What we learned first, around 33,000 Taliban that the week before were killing security forces and civilians came to the cities. Not one was insulted, not one was killed, not one was lynched. That speaks volumes to me about the capacity for forgiveness and the desire for reconciliation in our society. This is a nation. You know, this is a united nation. A nation that have the capacity to forgive and look forward, not look backward. Hate should have prevailed. No one would have been able to prevent the lynching of the Taliban. But instead, people invited them to eat ice cream. And they liked it. So ice cream, I think, is a great sign of peace.
Well, it may be. Well, that's a question I have for you. What is your measure of peace? Because, you know, when I go there with General so-and-so or Secretary so-and-so, we're always showing on the map, this is the percentage of the country the Taliban still controls.
That's fine. That's absolutely.
This is how many people.
Mr. Barron, let's stay with the question that you've asked.
Oh, well.
You said, what have I learned? If you'd like to say what you've learned, well, I'll be delighted to listen. I'm a listener.
Please.
No, the second thing was that the prevalent theory was that a ceasefire that was declared would not be effective. It'd be broken. Look at the history of ceasefires from 1990s, 2000s. They rarely hold. This held 98%. And the 2% infractions were very minor. One officer was abducted during that time in Ghazni, and there were a couple of incidents in Sarapul. The ceasefire that holds 98% speaks about a discipline. You have an interlocutor that you have to take seriously. Equally, our security forces absolutely 100% implemented the ceasefire. They were saying that the army is full of hatred, it would never be able to engage. The third issue, the prevalent theory was that the political leadership of Taliban wants peace. The commanders on the ground and the fighters are raised on hatred. They will never accept it. It turned out to be just the opposite. All of these young men came and said they're tired. They don't want war. So a capacity for dialogue, what was really rare, was a capacity for dialogue. Fourth, people were saying the Taliban will never pray in a mosque. That's constructed by the public or the government. They came and prayed in tens of thousands with their brothers. They said that Taliban will never engage with women. women reporters engage with them, openly start discussing. So an opportunity is opened. I'm not saying that we've reached the finishing line. The finishing line is going to be full of hurdles, but the direction has been set. And most importantly, who initiated it? Whose request the ceasefire was initiated? Why did I act so quickly? I acted within 5 days. The entire decision was made in 5 days. The ulama. 2,907 Islamic scholars came together, and they had two choices, either to preach war or to preach peace. They preached peace. The Taliban religious leaders could not argue with the force of the fatwa. And because of it, for the first time, Saudi scholars came in support of it. So an opportunity has been created, a barrier has been broken, but it's far from finished. Because the other side is, of course, violence was resumed, and as commander-in-chief, during the 2 days of ceasefire, I spent 1 day with the commandos, 1 day with CRU. That's our special unit. And since then, I've been to 201 Force and others. The message from our armed forces is they embrace the goal of peace, but they're ready to defend the country. And the war, unfortunately, has reality. So now we have to take the next steps, and hopefully we'll be able to take those.
Okay, we're within 15 minutes, so I want to go to questions. The last one I'll say, will you try again, another ceasefire?
I'll try anything.
How does it start? Do you start or do you wait for the request?
I never wait.
You'll try it? All right, you heard it here.
It's a prisoner's dilemma. I'm not a prisoner of the past. I'm not going to be a prisoner of perceptions.
All right, we'll start right here. You mentioned women, so I'm going to go with the woman to start.
Of course.
Rabi, and one on my backside here.
I'm glad that the gender equality is coming to you.
Right. As always, introduce yourself. Please keep it short. Ask a question, or I will cut you off.
Thank you. My name is Lima Ahmed. I am a research scholar with NDC. I would like to make a small comment and then a question to His Excellency
Better
President.
be very small.
Yeah. The comment is the lesson learned for Afghan for the ceasefire was that we got to know that our government has authority to offer ceasefire because we believe that it was always the Taliban side that they could offer ceasefire. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for starting this initiative or reopening the ceasefire or the peace negotiation. My question is that how much you are committed to the peace process and women inclusion into the peace process, and what is the level of women engagement right now in the initial steps that we are taking? Because whatever is happening, there is lots of criticism coming that where are women on the table, why we don't see more women, what is happening, why women are not involved. So I would like to hear your perspective on that. Thank you.
Certainly. First, last week, I named 3 directors of finance who are women, provincial directors of finance. This week, I've named 2 women as mayors. We have ambassadors, we have ministers, we have over 11 deputy ministers that are women, presidential advisors, members of parliament. Second, every stakeholder in Afghanistan was consulted, including women, in great detail over 3 years. When there's a 5-day window, are you going to ask every step you take on basis of consultation, or you have to take history? Please don't engage in a Zeno's paradox. I mean, there is a consensus on peace. Which part of the country does not want peace? We need to take the steps. The criticism comes from where? They thought that we had concluded peace, and they were left out. I have not had a face-to-face discussion or on the phone discussion with the Taliban. The ceasefire initiative was based on my analysis of the readiness of the society. Women are members of the Peace Council. We've always made it clear, including the February speech, that Afghan women would be part of the peace negotiating team. We need to differentiate getting to peace negotiations engaging in peace negotiations, arriving at a peace agreement, and then its endorsement, and then its implementation. This is phases. People do not have a clear sense that there are phases to this, and in every phase, the consensus needs to be renewed. Simply put, Afghan society has a consensus on making peace. It does not have a consensus on the price to be paid for peace. And that has to be endorsed and discussed publicly. I feel that I have the authority and the mandate to move, to make the discussions possible, but once we get to the discussions, it's going to need national mechanisms of endorsement, regional and international. But women are always the top of the agenda, rest assured.
Very good. We'll turn right here, please.
President Ghani, thank you for taking your time with us. We've known each other a long time. Thank you for your personal sacrifice and your courage and your leadership. You talked about the war within and the war for Afghanistan. Can you talk about the situation now with the neighbors, Pakistan, India, China, and you've talked about internal forces and how they've moved. What's the constellation of external forces right now, and is that improving at all?
Thank you, Mr. Kim. You've been a great friend, and I have great admiration both for your scholarship and your management. And thank you for the years that you had me on the advisory board. I learned a lot, always. On the region, a consensus is re-emerging. We're delighted that China's President Xi, India's Prime Minister Modi, Uzbekistan's President Mirziyoyev, in their discussion with President Trump, have at least devoted 30% of their time on Afghanistan. The unprecedented step when China's President and India's Prime Minister agreed to cooperate on Afghanistan. The discussion that I began under President Obama between President Xi and the United States to create the trilateral format of discussion is really paying off. Witness the last Shanghai conference. 4 years ago, Shanghai conferences were full of accusations regarding Afghanistan. They saw no opportunity, it saw it as a threat. This year, it was enormously constructive. And the choice that I put, whether we become a platform for regional cooperation or alternatively, a launching ground, the uniform answer was that the platform for cooperation is preferred. But this requires work. And the region, again, is undergoing changes. Post-sanction Iran needs to be analyzed very carefully. We have bilateral relationship, but there are other aspects. The agenda of economic cooperation is really moving. And this is becoming very attractive because you're seeing an alternative. On paper, we've had very significant movement with Pakistan. I hope that it will translate into actions. It is the challenge because our relation with Pakistan has to become three-dimensional. It's been unidimensional. Everything has been shadowed by their relationship with Taliban. Now our discussion is, one aspect, how do we get to peace with Taliban? Because we've acknowledged that there is the adversary, and adversaries make peace. The second is, how would cooperation vis-a-vis Central Asia take place? Afghanistan wants to be a roundabout, a place where everybody comes, ideas, goods, etc. And the biggest issue is power, energy. We're not only talking about gas, but probably between 10,000 and 65,000 megawatts of power. And the third aspect that needs to be discussed is counterterrorism, because that threat is not going to disappear when we make peace with Taliban. So that set of relationships is now taking place. The distinctions are made. I'm patient. I hope that my patience pays off.
Very good. Next here.
Yeah, Viggo Zasłuchackas, former WIIS.
Keep talking, it's on.
Yeah, Ushacka speaking as former EU SAR, EU Special Representative in Afghanistan. Having worked with Dr. Ashraf Ghani for 4 years in Afghanistan, I mean, permit me to reiterate what he said to the Western audience.
Please get to a question that
There is no, it's important. I think it's important. I'm sorry to say that. I think it's important. There is no quick fix in Afghanistan. What it requires is a comprehensive approach, not only military capabilities, but also economic development, connectivity, and peace and reconciliation. And also it requires stamina, resilience, and staying power. Something we in the West have failed to prove properly. And something we have to learn from Afghan people and leadership and Dr. Ashraf Ghani. The second point, and that's what I want to ask you. I mean, it seems like I've not been in Afghanistan for the last 4 years, having worked in Moscow, but we always believed that the peace process will come from within, but will have to be supported from outside. It seems like the United States is now explicitly supporting peace process, but is it sufficient? What about Russia? What about China? More specifically on the peace and reconciliation. Can they work together in support of Afghan leadership in peace and reconciliation? Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, absolutely you're right. The initiative had to come from us. We have to own our problems. Our problems are conflict. Our problems are corruption. Our problems are cronyism. And our problems are criminality. There are 4 C's. And they're being acknowledged. There's no denial, and we're systematically tackling them. And we needed to persuade our society and our partners that there was a political solution as the ultimate objective. Use of force is not an end in itself. Use of force is a means to get to a political solution. We've built this consensus, and there's a convergence. The key word is convergence. I'm extremely grateful to the United States for supporting the peace effort. There's no obstacle because the Taliban thought that this was an unsurmountable obstacle. 2 hours after my speech, offering to extend the ceasefire, Secretary Pompeo gave an excellent statement. And again, in Kabul this week, he repeated this. Let's differentiate between 2 things regionally. The coalition for war, the region was reluctant to join. The partnership for peace, most of the region will join in. And that's what we are hoping, that a broad enough consensus comes. And our request, given 40 years of our suffering, please take your disputes elsewhere. Treat Afghanistan as an area of cooperation. We deserve it.
Okay, we'll turn back this way here.
Hi,
and then we'll
President
go over
Ghani.
and make our way.
I'm an American journalist, but I promise you I too like patterns and non-events. So here's a pattern that I really need your genuine help in understanding as an anthropologist. On my last reporting trip to Afghanistan, I was, quite frankly, flustered and surprised by the new statistic from Human Rights Watch that 2/3 of girls still aren't in school. And I ask you this because so much,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
2/3 of girls, Afghan girls, are still not attending school. And because that girls' education is such an area of focus for international organizations, it's used, as a measure by world bodies to basically figure out how successful you are. You know this. Where are we missing the mark? What are we not getting right? Why aren't girls still in school? Is this a misguided question? I'm genuinely, I don't get it.
We didn't get it right because of corruption. There were hundreds of schools that didn't exist. Thousands of teachers that were ghost teachers. And for all the talk of technology, there isn't a single school that was provided with distance learning. No, but I'm saying why you're not getting it is because it wasn't created. We made people illiterate in 3 languages. Corruption, the problem is twofold. Human capital was not attended to. I was finance minister, and all the donors came and said, misplaced concreteness. In Latin America, a lot of the expenditure went on tertiary education, so Afghanistan doesn't need to invest in tertiary education. What nonsense. And as a result, what do you get? Close to $10 billion went to technical assistance. And what does it leave behind? Not a single functioning highway network in the country, not a power system, 9 islands, but particularly not quality education. Girls are coming, they're doing much better than boys, but to get to the very nitty-gritty, how many girls school at the age of puberty have toilets? And that is fundamental. How many girls' schools are within 500 meters of the village where every mosque is, instead of being 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers away? The issue here is the international experts that came to Afghanistan were male-centered. They talk about gender, but the pamphlet on gender was glossy and totally out of content, lacking content. We are now dealing with, I hope, an extraordinary effort. Our Deputy Minister for Vocational Training is a brilliant Afghan woman who in 3 months has done more than 17 years combined. She is going to create, Nadima said, a vocational school in every district in the country and address this. Human capital does not grow out of just throwing books. It grows out of a systematic effort. I was speaking to the former foreign minister of Japan. She was a girl right after World War II. She had 2 pairs of shoes for 5 years and a couple of skirts, but she got quality education. We focused on the hardware, but not on the quality. And that is what we need to do now.
Take that applause. So one more around your shoulder as well. This might be our last question. We're watching time.
My name is Mahjouba Nawrouzi. I'm from BBC Afghan Service. And I have 2 very quick questions, Mr. President. One is that we heard from sources within the presidential palace that Mr. Dostum is returning to Afghanistan on Monday. I would like to know whether that's true or not. And the other question is that we get reports from that scores of people have been protesting across Afghanistan, particularly in the north, and against what they call it your divisive policies. So some analysts also believe that you're making your policies are making you more enemies for you rather than friends. So what's your stance on that, and what's your reaction to these protests in the north of the country?
Well, first, we are a democratic, open society. Protest is the right of every Afghan, as criticism is your right, or everybody else's. I receive 1 billion curses a day, and I've never responded to them. It comes with the job. Second, did you get security before I became president? Or did you get strongmen twisting people, grabbing their land, depriving them of livelihood, serving as gatekeepers? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to serve the current and future generations, or serve my generation? I've opted to serve your generation. 49% of the cabinet that I lead is below 40. How many of them come from connected families? They're self-made men and women. That's the choice. The choices. In the north, I went to the Balkh province, to the Army Corps 209, and I saw delegations from 5 provinces. Were they not asking for a comprehensive military operation? This was bottom up. But when people are used to ignore the law, they're going to protest. But I think the judgment needs to be asked not from me, but from the people. What kind of order do Afghans want? I think that Afghans have an enormous sense of fair play and justice. They want in Afghanistan that everybody can be subjected to rule of law. Whether this makes you friends or enemies, I'm sworn to uphold the law, and I will uphold the law. No comment at this moment.
Okay, unfortunately, we are told we're at the end of our time, which has gone too fast for me, and I'll ask for the last final comment. In our world covering the military, we've noted that President Trump has not visited troops in Afghanistan or come to see you. Would you like to see that happen? Is there a reason that he hasn't come yet that we don't know about?
The president has got an enormous agenda. He will come to Afghanistan when his time permits and his schedule allows.
Good.
But we are grateful for the support.
And hopefully everyone else will go to visit Afghanistan. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause for President Ghani. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.